Hello and welcome to Family TV. I am Adeshola Aregbe, your host on Family TV. We are still on the edition, Sex, a Major Root of Marital Crisis, and this is the 4th episode. On this episode, we are considering the question, what hinders sex talk in Christian marriages? To help us look at this question, we have guests. First of them for this episode is Dr. D.T. John. Dr. D.T. John, what hinders sex talk in Christian marriages?
Our tradition, our culture, our background as an African, perhaps the church dogma can hinder sex in Christian marriage. Not only in Christian marriage, in many marriages. Sex for me is a tonic. It's like a lubricant. Of course, you know that when your car lacks lubricant, it cracks, it knocks. Several families have knocked because this lubricant is dried and they have not changed it. Sex reduces stress. Sex can foster intimacy. Sex can also reduce, by my research, divorce rate. Sex can boost communication. And humorously, I say sex is a great workout. I call it an indoor exercise. It's a lubricant. Just visualize what a lubricant does. For instance, if you have an hinges of the door that because of frictions, it makes a lot of noise. As soon as you apply lubricant, just an oil, the friction and the noise cease. So if sex takes its natural place in home, it reduces every iota of friction. In fact, as a matter of fact, by my experience, the reason for constant frictions at home is because maybe the husband is not satisfying the wife or the wife is not satisfying the husband. If this satisfaction is in place, there are some notable friction that will naturally cease. So let's agree that sex is a lubricant. I've had a meeting where people who are elderly, 50, 57, were complaining about their husband not having intimacy, not having discussion, just jump on them and come out. So, this can hinder sex. This can hinder sex. Your tradition, maybe you are ashamed to talk about it. Your culture, maybe your culture doesn't talk about it. Sometimes we think that sex is odudu. I used to tell them that sex is not odudu. Sex is communication. But everybody is shy to talk about it. Hardly will you see a man and a woman quarreling because of it, and they'll be able to be bold to say this is the reason of the quarrel. They are going to attach it to other things, other mundane things that is not the reason, because of tradition. And tradition can kill, and it can kill so bad.
Thank you, Doctor. You've heard Dr. D.T. John. Right now, we will be linking up with Mrs. Adaku Onam to get her own perspective. Mrs. Onam, what hinders sex talk in Christian marriages?
The discussion is being hindered by a lot of things. One, our upbringing. Two, the African mentality that these things are not supposed to be heard. These things are not things you say in the public. In fact, those days you hardly see people coming to the screen to discuss it. Then in church, most churches will not speak it openly. Even in marriage counseling, they will just go on the peripheral. They will not allow you to go deep into the issue so that it will not look as if you are becoming unholy or you are becoming too sexually active. And sometimes there is a part you discuss and you'll be looked as someone who is not really spiritual. So sometimes the church and the society does not accommodate the discussions. So it makes it difficult for people to come openly and discuss.
Thank you, ma. Wow, our dear viewers, we believe we've all been enriched so far with what we've heard. We will now be connecting with Engineer Ola Elesho to get his own take on the question of the day. Engineer Elesho, what hinders sex talk in Christian marriages?
Our culture, we grew up in a culture where it seems to be a taboo to discuss it. And secondly, the church too has not helped it. That the church has not brought it into the front burner as a major item to be discussed. At times we find that even when we are discussing marriage, in that particular area, even in a marital talk, when you invite someone to come and talk to us about marriage, they just quickly gloss over it and continue to talk about communication, talk about money, talk about other affection, talk about submission. I mean, in fact, one of the things that I get alarmed at is the over-hammering on submission, as if the woman is the only issue at stake. Or even if you listen to a wedding, most wedding talks is addressed to the woman: submit, 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 submit. And then so this issue of sex is brought to the background even in the church conversation, coupled with the cultural issue. And then there are ladies, tradition said, don't talk about sex. If you are too forward, even if you like it, don't show that you like it, lest your husband calls you a prostitute or so it is. So it's tradition, the way we have over suppressed women in our culture, and also the church not bringing it to the front burner.
Thank you very much, sir. Wow, that was a mouthful, I can say. We will now be linking up with a lady, Mrs. Yetunde Adebari, to get her own perspective. Mrs. Adebari, what hinders sex talk in Christian marriages?
One of the things that has been a challenge in Christian marriages is the fact that we think it is a sin to talk about sex. One of those things that must never be discussed. It's like when you are growing up as a child, as a girl, your mother tells you, don't go near any man, and you don't understand it. So from childhood, nobody actually discusses sex with you. We run away from discussing those matters by keeping quiet about them as if they don't exist. And these things have really been a challenge, such that when you grow up, when you now need to discuss it, a lot of people have unanswered questions, they have feelings, they have emotions, they don't discuss it, and you bury it in your subconscious. And as a little student of psychology, you realize that things that you bury that are not discussed, your body, your brain, your mind tends to forever bury them. And so even when discussions come around it, you begin to shy away from it. People look at those who talk about sex as less of themselves. At a point in time in our marriage, my husband was always like, you don't understand my needs. I'm like, excuse me, I don't understand how. When you say it's time, say, no, I don't always have to. You should be able to see the signs. You should be able to read the mood. So that's why I was saying initially that we need to teach ourselves. I didn't think that there was a mood or a time that there were signs that you needed to know or understand. I just felt that, well, when it is time, you tell me it is time, and we'll get ready.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Wow. We will now be rounding up this episode by connecting with Dr. Tosin Adekeye to get his own take on the question. Dr. Tosin, what hinders sex talk in Christian marriages?
During my master's program, I did a study. My master's thesis was actually on sexual anxiety. And one thing that became very clear is that the upbringing that we have in the process of trying to maintain morals, and that's a very good thing. We were told that sex was bad. You shouldn't go near it. If a man as much as touched your arm, you got pregnant. So as a result, you find women or men who came up with the wrong mindsets about sex. And as a result of that background, they come into the marriage with that kind of mindset, which is why I said earlier on that during counseling, we need to explore these myths about sex. It's dirty. It's only for procreation. It's not something to be enjoyed. When you come to religion, you have extreme, and I say this boldly, a lot of the extremes with regards to enjoyment and lack of enjoyment, many of us are not aware that it's a shortfall of Middle Eastern religion, you know, that says life was not created for you to enjoy, you should suffer all through. So if that kind of mindset finds its way into sex, and they tell you that you can't, sex has to be for procreation. It's only when we have decided that we want to have children, that's when we will have sex. Outside that, no. So you find that one party is suffering. One party is paying for another party's mindset about sex. And let me quickly say this here. There's what we call libido or sexual energy. People have it differently. You know, just like somebody is tall, somebody is short, somebody is fat, somebody is slim. Some people have higher libido, some people have lower libidos. Now, if two discordant libidinal people get married, you have a problem if they don't sit down to talk about it. Because somebody wants it, the other person can't be bothered. So one person continues to suffer in silence, and it's only a matter of time. It could spiral out of control. So yes, a lot of our mindsets as Africans, our mindset religion-wise, and those things at the point of marriage, we do not sit down to say, and Adam and his wife were naked, and they were not ashamed. And that has both a hidden meaning and a very open meaning. The very open meaning is that they were without clothes and they were not ashamed of each other. The hidden meaning many times is it meant that they didn't keep any secrets from each other. So those things affect them. And how do they affect sexual life? You will find that sexual anxiety, depending on the phase. Now, the sexual response cycle has a phase, okay? And it can affect what we call the desire phase, where some people don't have desire for sex. So when the man approaches his wife or the wife approaches the man, he turns the person off and says, I'm not in the mood. I don't want. That has affected the desire phase. Sometimes it could also affect the excitement phase. Now, the excitement phase is the next phase after desire. And that is where the blood begins to rush. That's where a man has an erection. It could affect him in him not having or being able to sustain an erection. Remember that a lot of the physiology of sex has to do with our mind. Our mind plays a big role. So if somebody's mind is not there, or if somebody has the wrong mindset, he will not be able to sustain an erection. So the woman is wondering, what did I do wrong? What's happening? And in the case of the woman, she could become frigid. In other words, the lubrication that the vagina needs to facilitate penetration will not be there. So where you haven't discussed all of this, and the man forcefully tries to penetrate, she will experience pain. Now, we all have an aversion to pain. Once you hit pain, you tend to want to run away or fight the stimulus that is causing pain. So she will start dodging. And because of the mindset of not being able to talk about it, she's not going to say anything. No, then you have, the intercourse itself. And then after that, you have orgasm. Now, here's where there's a lot of myth. In psychology, we know that being able to achieve an orgasm is part of your self-actualization. It's the place of letting go. It's the place of being free. Some women use it now as a means to bargain out of frustration. So you hear things like, you didn't help me with the children. You didn't help me in the kitchen. You just came back from work. You put your legs up. I've served your food. I put your bath water. And unfortunately, culture doesn't make it any easier for us. Culture says she needs to do those things and she should not talk. She should not tell him that there's a problem and he needs to address it. So some of them have gone around it to try to now say, okay, if you help me fetch water, then there's something for you in the evening. And remember that a lot of our behavior is reinforced. If you pass an exam and they give you a candy, you will study in order to pass exams. From the time you were a baby, that's the way we've conditioned your behavior. So he goes ahead to do these things, knowing fully well that, oh, there's something I'm going to gain at night. We don't need to get to that point. She's doing that because of a lack of satisfaction. In some other cultures, all the man does is, I'm coming back home now in another 5 hours, in another 2 hours. You need to get ready for me. This thing's happening. In fact, some people will say it from the morning that he's going. Don't come and tell me that there's headache. Don't come and tell me that your body is paining you. Once I come back tonight, you have not given me this thing for the past 3 weeks. I must collect it today. No matter, even if you are dying. I've seen extreme cases. The woman was billed for surgery. This is real life. Christians. She was billed for surgery. And the man began to act up in the room. He was getting irritable. He was getting angry. I know that some women can resonate with this. When a man does not get what he wants, he becomes irritable. So he was irritable. He was angry. He was snapping at everybody. Then finally, he told the nurses, please go out. I want to have some private time with my wife. Immediately they went out. He locked the door and told her, we have to do this thing. We have to do this thing now. The thing is catching me. And she looked at him with, here in the hospital. Are you kidding me? Now, when they came to talk to me, I said, we began to look at what their sex life is like. She dodges because of the way he approaches it. It's all about him. Once he goes in and he has ejaculated, had an orgasm, he comes out, he's happy. It's like the woman is wood. Prior to it, he's looking at her. By the time he's done, what am I looking for here again? Quickly, he changes the topic. He moves to something else. He's worn his clothes. In fact, an extreme case. The woman said, the man came back from work. Are you at home? Yes, I'm at home. He rushed back home and she was still in her nightie. And all he did was to remove his trousers without even removing his shirt. And she came to me weeping and saying, I felt like a prostitute. He wasn't even going to take off his clothes. That's what I am. And her mind began to say so many things. Oh, maybe somebody turned him down in the office. That's why he came back here, and all of that. So for the man, what satisfaction means, because like I said earlier, he will have an ejaculation. He will have orgasm. He doesn't think that a woman ought to also have orgasm. And therefore, he just treats her like we treat women in Africa. They're just tools to be used and discarded. And that's very wrong, particularly among believers, particularly in a Christian home. Peter says you are co-heirs of the grace of God, which means even in the matter of sex, you need to be able to sit down and be able to talk about it and ensure that she also is satisfied. So satisfaction to the man is, I've had an ejaculation. Some men use pills, because again, in some cultures, it's not just about ejaculation, it's about how many rounds you can do. So irrespective of whether the woman has lubrication in the vagina or not, he's more about boasting with his friends. I've heard men say it, before morning breaks, I would have done 4 rounds. And when he says it to me, I say, and what happened to your wife? Say, no, that's not the issue. The issue is that I'm able to go 4 times. And that's because somewhere in that culture, it says you are man, you are virile, based on the number of times that you have gone.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Wow. Dear viewers, we are very grateful that you stayed up with us watching this episode. We believe you've been enriched with the contributions that our guests have provided for us on this edition. It is our prayer that every home having hindrances to sex talk or having marital crisis will receive direction by reason of this ministration in Jesus' name. Amen. I remain your host, Adeshola Aregbe on Family TV. Watch out for episode 5. Thank you.